This is Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creators like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hey Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 36 of the Dreams and Drive No Parking Podcast. And today our guest is Chay Rodriguez, who's the creator and host of Goals, the podcast, which is available on iTunes and SoundCloud. She's an entrepreneur who has no fear in traveling for an opportunity, and you guys will hear all about Chay's journey to success in today's episode. Chay is currently working towards becoming a television correspondent and loves to motivate other entrepreneurs using her podcast and platform. And on today's episode, we really dive into why the path to success isn't always so straight. And Chay shares her story of what her life looks like post-graduation. She talks about going to California because she thought she wanted to pursue law, and then coming back to the East Coast and starting her own pop-up shop, and just the varied career journeys that she has experienced since graduating. And what I loved about Chay's story, and that you guys will also hear, is how evident her hustle is. That's one thing you cannot deny when listening to Chay's story, is this woman is full of passion and heart and hustle, and you dream drivers listening in can really learn from her story. Some key things that we talk about is the biggest lesson she learned while working at a top retail store as a buyer, how to stand in your truth and not be afraid of the repercussions. We talk about what inspired her to launch Goals, the podcast, and some of the challenges she's faced along the way. And last, and I think this is most important, she talks about the things she would do differently if she could. And a lot of times, a lot of people try to say, oh, I wouldn't do anything differently, but Chay definitely has one thing that she would do differently if she could go back in time. So as you know, you can find us across the board on iTunes or on SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever you are listening in. Make sure that you are subscribed to us, and especially on iTunes, please leave us a review, leave us a rating, tell us what you think about this Dreams and Drive podcast. Remember, if you want to find us on social, we are everywhere across the board at Dreams and Drive. And last but not least, if you want to join the Dreams and Drive community and get exclusive access to our upcoming content, giveaways, offers, all that good stuff, all you have to do is go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you want show notes, just go to dreamsanddrive.com and click on episode 36. Hey Chay, welcome to today's episode of Dreams and Drive. I'm so excited to have you here on the show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I know. We have to tell the story of how we came to be before we get into the podcast. So maybe you can tell our dream drivers how we met virtually.
Yeah, I actually read Raina's article on NicoleBitchy.com.
Exo Nicole. We got to say Exo Nicole.
Sorry, Nicole. Yes, but if you type in NicoleBitchy.com, it still reroutes you, so you're good either way. But yeah, on Exo Nicole, and I just was kind of starstruck a little bit that someone had started a podcast and wrote about it on this, what I consider to be large platform. And I was like, who's this person? They seem so knowledgeable about podcasts. I clicked around, I clicked your bio, did a little FBI, stalker searching. And I reached out to Raina and I said, listen, do you want to do an interview swap? We can basically trade listeners. And we, scheduled it through email and linked up. And I think our first virtual encounter through Skype and on Goals the podcast, I think it was successful. I loved our conversation.
It was, and I don't know if by the time this is up, if my podcast with Chay will be up, but I'll let you know in the show notes if it is. So, or it will be at one point. Whenever you're listening to this, the link to Chay's podcast, the podcast I did with her, will be up. So Chay, as you know, I love to ask all our dream drivers, the first question is always the same, is what inspired you as a child? So if I had to say who was Chay the 4-year-old, the 5-year-old, the 8-year-old, what would you say?
I would definitely say, instead of a what, it would be more of a who. My grandmother, she amazing woman. Um, when I first went to the library, I called her up and I told her about this great place where you can get all the books you want for free. I already read the 7 that they let me get. And she was like, yeah, you know, the library is great. Books are great. I love that you have an imagination. And she enrolled me in a book club. And monthly, she would get me these Harry Potter books sent to her house in New York, and she would give them to me, and I would read them with her, and I'd read them with my mom. And when she passed, when I was 12, I just said, I'm going to make her proud. I'm going to take care of all my family, and I'm going to be successful because she just opened up a whole new world for me, I feel like. So I wanted to do it for her. I wanted to be successful for her.
Wow, that's really, I feel like we all have those people in our lives who have played such an instrumental part in building our character. So I love that story. And I know a lot of our dream drivers listening in may also have people like that in their lives.
Yeah, I mean, it still affects me to this day, you know, like 12, 13 years later after her death. I still find myself asking my mom, like, well, what would Mama be think? Like, what would she think about, you know, this decision that I make? Like, tell me, be her for a second and tell me, you know, what she would think. So still to this day, everything that I do, being an entrepreneur and taking the many fails and missteps that I've taken, I still just like hope that I'm making her proud.
So I know you went to Rutgers, right?
I did. Rutgers, Camden.
So what made you study marketing and minoring in economics when you went?
So long story, which I guess this is the perfect place to tell it, but I um I wanted to go to law school actually. I had graduated college I graduated high school a year early, and I went into college saying, okay, I want to graduate college early so that I can hurry up and get into law school. And Rutgers Camden had the 3-3 program, which was 3 years for your bachelor's and then 3 years for your law degree. But in order to have a law degree, you do not have to major in English. You don't have to major in history. It doesn't have to be, it can be anything. And I thought I wanted to be an entertainment lawyer or an agent. So I would go into business so that I had that backing under me. And then, you know, I would go into the Rutgers Camden law program, which is Rutgers has a really great law school. So, you know, it wasn't a bad idea. And one thing led to another. I was in the honors college. Certain things they require, like you having a take certain classes. The classes that I ended up taking, it ended up making sense to take like 2 more econ classes, and I would have, you know, the econ minor. So I was just like, you know what, let's just do that. And I ended up not going to law school. Imagine that.
Do you regret it, or do you still want to be a lawyer or no?
No. After college, I moved to California and I worked for Paul Hastings, which, if you ever watch like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, really any show in LA where they do the B roll in the backdrop of the city in downtown LA, there's a law firm called Paul Hastings. And I think they're ranked like I think they're like the number 16th like employment law firm in the like world. And I worked there. And I was like, you know, this is the lawyer I want to be. I want to work with the big dogs. I want to work for the sharks, not the minnows. I want to be, you know, on the side of the big company. And I hated my life for 7 months.
No.
I was like, thank God that I went to get this experience prior to paying all that money for law school and ending up, you know, being miserable.
So how important do you think it is for people to actually test drive that dream before they dive head on?
Um, that's hard for me to say because I feel like I tried to test drive my dream out of fear. Right before I was supposed to take the LSATs, my LSAT instructor told us that in every class he's ever taught, there's been one person that completely threw up in the middle of the floor before the test. And I knew in my heart of hearts that was going to be me. So I bailed on the test and I was like, you know what? Let me just see. Let me just go find a law firm work there and see if that'll work for me. I watched Girlfriends growing up, which I'm sure a lot of young women did. And I saw Joan and I was like, I want to be a lawyer in California. Let's try this out. Let's, be at a big law firm in California. And so that's why I test drove my dream. Some people, they might not need to do that. You might waste time test driving your dream. You'll look up and you'll have been a case assistant or a paralegal forever because life happens and you never took that leap to go to law school. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't me. I think it depends on your drive and determination, and it depends on, just really your drive and determination and how far you are willing to go for that dream.
So what did you do after leaving Cali?
After leaving Cali, I came back to Jersey and I opened up a pop-up shop, a swimwear pop-up shop in Philadelphia on it's on South and 4th on Fabric Row in Philly, and that was a disaster. Like I said, I took misstep after misstep, and it was just certain things that I jumped the gun a little bit on. I didn't have a lot of inventory. I didn't have enough inventory. The markups were wrong. My marketing wasn't really there. I had like the bare bones of a business plan, which I don't think you need a business plan to start a business, but I didn't think it all the way through. Even though you don't have to have it all written down when you go to start a business and you go to invest so much money into a business and a storefront and everything, you do need to have it a little bit more fleshed out than I did.
So, what made you want to launch a swimwear pop-up? I feel like that's so niche. That's not, like, something that you just say, hey, I want to launch a swimwear. Like, what inspired you to do that?
Growing up, I dealt with a lot of body image issues. And when I went to Cali, I lost probably, like, a good 10, 20 pounds. And, 10 or 20 pounds, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually does make a big difference on your body and your body shape. And I was in California and I was feeling so good. And I used to walk Venice Beach all the time. And I would think to myself, Jersey has, great beaches. Why don't we have some of the swimwear that California offers to people who go to the beach all the time as well, So I went and I looked at the shops on Venice Beach and I was like, I want to bring this back to Jersey, but I don't want to be on a beach. I don't want to be like a boardwalk shop, Mm-hmm. So, that's kind of where I got the idea. And I thought exactly what you said, that's a niche market. It would be more like swimwear lingerie, which was big at the time in fashion. And, I thought it would work. And it's not that it didn't work. It's just, it didn't happen as fast as I wanted it to happen in our society of instant gratification.
I definitely feel you in that. So you decided to let go of that idea, or you just never renewed the pop-up experience? Like what eventually became of that business?
The space that I had got was so expensive. It was way too big. I ended up doing a couple of events with a few different people, and I kind of felt like, because, you try to collaborate, especially when you're doing something like that, and it just didn't work out for me as well as it worked out for them. I thought a couple of times I was taken advantage of, so I was like, you know what, I didn't come in with all the knowledge that I needed to come in with to really run a business. Let me stop and think about this. And when I stopped and I thought about it, I thought buying and picking out the swimsuits that I wanted to be in the store was what I liked the best. It was like, that was the whole, it wasn't interacting with customers. It wasn't posting to social media. It was picking out the styles to resell. So I said, okay, maybe I want to be a buyer.
That is so key. You said, you figured out what part of the process you enjoy doing the best or the most. Why do you think it's important that any entrepreneur figure out what their strengths are?
It's important for you to figure out what your strengths are so that you can develop them and go even further with them. When you play to your strengths, you save a lot of your time and you find out what your weaknesses are and you outsource them to other people. Yeah, you outsource them to other people so that you can continue to do what you're good at and you can get what you need to get done the correct way and not with you fumbling through it.
All right, so you said that you figured out you liked buying. Is that when you then launched or were propelled into pursuing buying as a career option?
Yes, it was. I went and I got a job. I looked up the requirements to be a buyer, and first you have to have some retail experience in order to even be an assistant buyer. So of course, I had a little bit of experience working retail during seasonal periods in college or whatever, but I didn't have that full year that they wanted. So I went and I just got like a little retail gig at Ann Taylor Loft, and I literally, after maybe about 6 months, I was like, this retail thing is not for me. My feet hurt. I can't do this. So I was like, I'm going to go back to school and get my master's in global fashion enterprise at Philadelphia University. They have a strong fashion program there. So I went there, and the degree, I think, really honestly, was what put my interest in fashion into words on a resume, just those words alone kind of got me in the door at a couple places to buy in Jersey. And I interviewed with Spencer's, which their company, they do Spencer's in the mall, and they also have like the Halloween Spirit store that comes from October to I think like April, and they shut back down and reopen in October. So I interviewed with them, and I also interviewed with Foreman Mills, which is a discount warehouse big box type retailer, and I ended up getting the job with them, being the assistant buyer with footwear, men's, kids, and ladies footwear.
Right, so what was that experience like? And what did you learn about what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur from that?
That experience in itself was hell, and
Oh no, I know Foreman Mills. Like, girl, growing up, Foreman Mills, where you went there for like school uniforms, and you never wanted to stay in the store for more than 10 minutes because it was just so hectic. So I could
it,
imagine like being on the backside. Sorry about that.
no, girl, you hit it right on the head. The experience that you feel shopping was what I felt every day going into that office. I am. Yeah, I mean, you're going to be able to see by my picture, but I'm Afro Latina, so you can already know the issues that we face being African American. You you face discrimination, and that company in itself, when you kind of look up the ranks, it's not a lot of black buyers there, which is something that I do see a few places. So it kind of already showed me like this is a stepping stone. And it's very important that, you understand stepping stones in your career and the different stepping stones that it takes you to jump from one stepping stone to the next, And that's what Foreman Mills was. It was a great stepping stone, and I was able to get an assistant buyer job somewhere else.
So, even though it wasn't the most ideal experience for you, what do you think is the biggest lesson you learned working there?
I think the biggest lesson that I learned working at Foreman Mills was that I was worth something.
Tell us more.
It came to a time when I needed to ask for a raise because I looked at the salaries that assistant buyers made at other companies, and I knew that I was doing 10 times more than them. I was driving huge Astro vans full of merchandise across state lines. I was in the back of warehouses, climbing on top of ladders, climbing on top of people's shoulders, getting like some type of mold poisoning from setting up those stores. Like, I was busting my butt, crunching numbers, learning the business, and I knew that I was worth more than what they were paying me. And when raises came around and, everyone got below what they were expecting because they had all worked their behinds off that year, I spoke up and I said, listen, you need to give me this amount or it's going to be an issue, and the issue might end up with me walking through the door. And it was really, you can't live in fear, because would I rather be feared and taken advantage of, or would I rather be respected and jobless, and when I walk out the door, you say, damn, we should have just kept her,
So did they give you that raise?
Of course they gave me the raise. No one else asked for it, so no one else got it.
Did other people know that you had asked, or you just kept that to yourself?
No. A couple of my, closer friends knew that I had asked. And, that was something else that I learned as well. There were some assistants that got a bigger raise than I did because they worked under a male DMM divisional, and I worked under a female divisional. And because of the industry and how certain people are with race and sex, it wasn't that we were doing work any different, and it wasn't even that they were doing work at a higher level than I was. It was simply because my boss was a woman that I got paid less than they did as far as a raise.
Do you think that was because she had less of a budget for you, or do you think it was just culture? Like,
No, that was the culture of the company.
oh wow,
Yeah.
wow.
And
So
she had admitted it when I asked for the raise, and I said, I don't understand why this person who's only been here for 3 months and I've been here for 12 and they've gotten a bigger raise than I am. And she was like, well, you're not supposed to talk about that. I was like, I don't care, that that's a mute point. And she said, well, it's a boys club. And I said, yes, but I need this money, so we're gonna figure this out.
oh, so you're saying that because you were a woman and your other counterparts were males, they received more.
Yep.
Oh, I thought you were saying because you're okay. Oh wow, that
It was
is
a little bit of both because my
okay.
boss was a woman and I was a woman, and then the male counterpart had male assistant buyers and they were males. It was, just that's what drove it home. That's how I knew it was a male female thing.
Wow. So, what tips would you give to other people in that space? So, people who are listening into this podcast, they may they may be aspiring to have their own businesses one day, but they may very well still be working that 9 to 5. Like, how can people who are scared to speak up for themselves speak up for themselves?
Um, that's a personal choice that you kind of have to come to grips with. You have to be willing to lose everything, and you have to be willing to stand in your truth. I don't have a problem naming names because, one, a lot of people know how bad that company culture is. If you go on Glassdoor, you can read the reviews yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to kind of be able to stand in your truth, stay rooted in it, and not be afraid of any type of repercussions that may come. You also have to be able to back it up. If I'm sitting here telling you that I deserve a raise, I need to be able to tell you it's because I come here on Monday and I outperform everyone until Friday when I leave.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to say, listen, you want me to do A, B, and C. I do A through Z and 1, 2, 3. You have to be able to say that. And you have to have the confidence to be able to pull it off, because you don't go in there and try to stand up for yourself if you're just going to turn back around.
Mm-hmm.
Your tail between your legs.
So, would you say you were passionate about what you were doing at Farmer Mills?
No, I would not say I was passionate about what I was doing at Farmer Mills. I would say that I was passionate about not being taken advantage of especially after I received my master's.
Okay. Because the reason why I asked you that is because there's people who may be working 9 to 5s where they're really not passionate about what they're doing. So it's hard for them to, like myself, right? Let's say I'm somebody who I have to be motivated, or I have to believe in the work that I'm doing in order to do a good job. I mean, this sounds horrible, but I'm just keeping it real, right? So it's really hard for me to be motivated and to really outperform if I just don't feel what I'm doing. So I have to find work that I am passionate about or that I feel motivated to do. But for people who are not passionate about it but still are able to perform very well, I applaud you guys. I could not do it. Like, I really could not. I would have been like, gotta find a new job. Like, they would probably fire me.
Yeah, it is hard, definitely. But that's when you find the thing that you're passionate about within it. You figure out why you're doing it. I was passionate about moving to the next level, so I stayed in it. In California, I was passionate about staying in California for as long as I could to really know this isn't what I wanted to do.
All right. So what made you quit and move on to the next stepping stone for you?
I talked to my mom, and she was like, she wanted to kind of go down south, and I was like, I'm ready for a change. I've been to Cali, I've came back, I've outgrown this place in this stage of my life, and I was doing some work. I worked on a couple shoots with a few stylists in New York, so I helped do a couple shoots for Vanity Fair, and worked on some stuff as far as commercial campaigns as like an intern under a stylist for Russell Westbrook's True Religion line that he was creative director of. And I was like, listen, like, I want to get more into fashion. I want to get more into styling. I thought buying was it, but maybe, it's more being hands-on with the product, more being like a host. Maybe on Style TV, style is not in anymore. It was taken over by Esquire, but something like that. So I was like, Atlanta is like the next big city outside of New York and California, and I didn't want to really take that New York market. So I went down to Atlanta. I got an assistant buying job to kind of take care of the day-to-day, in and out bills. And now I'm here, and I've switched my focus yet again.
All right, so what made you switch? So, okay, you moved to Atlanta. What was the goal moving to Atlanta? Was to pursue fashion styling?
Yeah, it was to pursue styling. And I actually, when I got down here, I've been down here since October. When I got down here, I got a gig writing for Everything Girls Love, which is the blog by Yandy Smith from New York Love and Hip Hop.
Mm-hmm.
I write for the fashion section there. And so I was like, I want to immerse myself in everything that I can fashion. Right before I left Jersey, I was doing these kind of like mini episodes. I was going into boutiques and I was asking them if I could film 3 of their like greatest looks. I would go in there and curate the looks, and I would get a model, like someone who was like maybe a little Instagram famous, to wear the looks, and I would explain them so I can make a reel and try to pitch it. And I came down here and I wanted to do that as well, but it's really hard when boutiques these days are predominantly online and through Instagram, so you can't find a lot of brick and mortar stores, and then people don't want to let you in and try on their clothes, and they think it's so much work for them. So I said, you know what, I need to broaden my scope. It can't just be fashion I'm talking about, and that's how I kind of got into goals.
All right, so let's talk about goals. Can you describe to me what Goals the podcast is and what inspires you to launch it?
Yeah, definitely. Goals is just, it's everything that I feel like I am. I feel like literally as an entrepreneur, I just embodied that get up and go spirit. I've embodied that fail, misstep, get up, fail, misstep, get up. And I wanted other entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs who either went to college or they didn't. And when I say young, I don't mean young as in like your age. I kind of mean young as in you're young on this route to owning your own business. You're young on this route to go and get it unconventionally. I wanted that person to hear the missteps of a videographer, the missteps of a model, the missteps of a venture capitalist, the missteps of, someone who is a doctor and has their doctorate in branding and business administration. So that's what Goals is. Goals is supposed to be kind of like a motivator and a reminder that there's other people out there struggling just like you are to get their dreams off the ground.
So up until this point, I want to say the goals you had for yourself were pretty, let's say, tangible. So you had you wanted to be a lawyer, then you wanted to be a swimsuit entrepreneur, then you wanted to be a buyer, then you wanted to do fashion styling. And then now that you have goals, it's more of like an outlet. It's more of a destination, a platform. How do you see yourself or what is the business model behind Goals too? Because everything else kind of had a tangible business model, but what's the business model for this?
Right now my business model are goals. I set a goal to kind of be a milestone for each month that I do. So I don't really have a business model, I guess, concrete as of late, but I do have goals, and I do I want to be able to make this, to monetize this podcast. That's something that's important to me because I feel like when you're doing good work, that will come. Mm-hmm. And I know in my heart of hearts that the interviews that I'm doing, they're good. I've had people, reach out to me and say, oh, I listened to this one and I cried. Or, wow, I listened to this one and I said, he was the perfect person to explain this situation out to me. So the goal right now is to get enough episodes out there to kind of monetize the product. And I mean, Raina, we've talked about this on and off the record, me taking the next steps as far as a tangible website, which I hate doing, social media, which I hate doing, and getting some good photos out there, which I don't want to do.
You have to.
I know. But that those things I feel like will help me build and help me gain a bigger audience, so that I don't kind of plateau and that I don't give up. Because I noticed that I am the type of person that I'll start something, and if I don't feel that instant gratification, I'll stop doing it. But because each week I'm talking to amazing people, it's like it refreshes me every time. It's not the goal for me to look and see, 30 more people listened. Although I do want listeners, don't get me wrong. My goal now is just putting out great content, and the 10 people that do listen can walk away from the podcast with it.
I think that's so important, because I think a lot of times when you focus just on metrics and just on numbers, you can get discouraged, and you may not know. Like, have you ever seen that graphic where there's two people digging and one person there's two people digging, and one person gives up, right? And then the other person wants to give up too, but he can't see that the diamond is right there, and he walks away. And it's just really like you really can't allow those metrics in the beginning to deter you, because you might really just be in the stage that you need to be in right now, right? And it's so funny, because I'm actually, after we get off this call, I'm going to record a podcast called Don't Rush Success, because I think that that's something that a lot of us who are in this space may struggle with, is like wanting the results to come so quickly. So I love your story that it has so many stepping stones, and I love that you talk about stepping stones, because it helps build your character, and it also helps you appreciate success when it does come. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and girl, I'm ready for this success to come. I'm ready to appreciate it. So whoever's listening, I'm just ready.
So if you think about your podcast, you launched it in when did you launch it again?
I launched it in June. June 21st is actually my grandmother's birthday. It was the first day that I uploaded an episode.
Okay, so think about, the different people that you've had on the show to date. What do you think are some of the biggest lessons that you have been able to learn from your guest?
I think the biggest lessons that I've been able to learn is, and they keep telling me this, because I say it to them like I'm a nag, but they keep telling me, oh my gosh, it's so funny that you asked this. I just got off the phone with, it's a phone with a guest, and he was like, I was testing you because I know you were emailing me, and it was like, I would get back to you. I wouldn't. And he was like, then today I was like, no, we're going to get this done. He was like, that persistence, like you keep going, like that's it. You keep going, and you never say anything slick. You never try to say anything smart. You don't try to blow me off after I get back to you a little late. And another guest said the same thing. He was just like, no one owes you their time. He was like, you look out for 15 interviews, and you'd be happy if you get one. Because, excuse my friend, she told me, he was like, no one owes you shit. And he was like, you stuck with it. And every time I was like, no, I can't do it. You came back and you said, no, that's okay. Like, we'll figure it out. Just, thank you for your time. That graciousness. And I don't see myself as a patient person, as you can see, because I've, tried all these different things trying to get to that kind of instantaneous success, And it's just teaching me that patience, that's what you need. That's what I need to get to my next goal, to get to success. I need patience.
And how have you been able to practice patience so far?
I think because I know that a no sometimes isn't really a no. And a maybe definitely isn't a no. And a yes sometimes, this is going to sound weird, yes doesn't always mean yes. And you have to be able to manipulate all of those responses to get what you want. So that patience comes in when I hear one of those answers, and then I have to recalculate my plan. And figure out how to get that interview or whatever the case.
And I even think with entrepreneurship, that's a lesson that you're going to have to learn in entrepreneurship if you want to be successful. And, in the game that it sometimes is you have to know how to identify how to kind of, like, in football where you have to kind of like trick somebody and then like
Yes.
go away and go around
Yes.
them. I don't know what the technical terms are. I'm picturing it in my head.
Wait, so I'm picturing like a basketball player, like how you kind of do that shake and bake type thing. Yeah, that's what I'm picturing.
So you don't want to be the entrepreneur who just like, stands there and just that's all you do. Like that's not basketball, right? Like you want to be the entrepreneur that's able to maneuver your way to shoot a ball that actually goes through the hoop. Right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I love that you talk about that because I think that's something that a lot of us don't realize that we may be doing. Like, which one are you? Are you standing still or are you, shaking and baking your way to the goal? That's something, that's hustle. And I think that's also something that cannot be taught. And I've had this, okay, let me repeat that. I think it's something that cannot be, it's something that you have to want. It's not something that anyone can give you. And I say that because I've had a lot of talks with people where they talk about it, but they're not about it. And they're two different people. And I just love that. I can just hear the hustle in your voice. And I think that's something, the hustle in your story too. I think that's something that a lot of dream drivers need to hear is that, what are you? Like really, like I should make it would be so funny if we, for this podcast artwork, if we had like, you standing still in a basketball court and you kind of like trying to make a goal, but I don't know how that would work. But anyway, that was just an idea.
That happen. I feel like we should try to make that happen. Not with the traditional pictures, but I feel like that one I might be able to scoundrel up something because that's.
So what have been some challenges that you have faced? Like I know you talk a lot about, things that you've done that have propelled you to the next stepping stone, but let's talk about with goals. Like what has been some of the biggest challenges that you faced trying to build this platform?
Okay, well, trying to build this platform, I feel like a really big obstacle for me is something that you mentioned earlier because podcasting is not YouTube. Podcasting is not Instagram or Tumblr because it's not really a social media outlet, but it is at the same time. And it's very hard to try to figure out how you're going to garnish sponsors. And that's something that kind of plagues me because I always think, my first sponsor, the first time I'm able to sell ad space, like I want that to be soon. I want to be special. I want it to make sense. And when you're talking to young entrepreneurs, you don't want to just take whatever comes your way. I don't really think it would make sense for me to get a mattress sponsor, to sponsor me. So I also kind of struggle with staying true to my brand. I listen to EOF, which is a podcast that we talked about on goals, and I heard one of the guests say that the Hilton, I think she said the Hilton Hotel had like followed her when she was on Twitter. And it became apparent to her that either she wanted to be famous, internet famous, or she wanted to make money. The way she would be internet famous is if she decided to push out all her content. Like you push content. And she said, or did I want to make money? So she said, the Hilton had followed her and she decided to hit the Hilton up and ask them if she would be able to use them for sponsorship, let's just say. I might be totally botching this story, but I understood what she was saying. But she reached out to the sponsor first. And I was thinking about this the other day. I had like 5 episodes out at the time and I was like, well, when do you know? I don't have, like what you said, I don't have the website up yet. I don't have blogs detailing my interviews out there. I don't have certain things, so there's no way that I'm able to tell what audience is uniquely mine. The only thing I have is the social media that I use to push the episodes. So that has been a big challenge, and they all kind of tie into each other. I need to have my own platform and able to get the metrics to show a sponsor that would make sense for my brand that I want them, so that I can start my business model and understand how all of this works. Because being an entrepreneur and being an entrepreneur of this facet, it's very hard to get it. I still feel like I have that old school mind sometimes where I do want a job and a 401k just so I have that security blanket. It's really hard to figure out where the income would come from if I were to stop working tomorrow. And that's a big challenge for me.
That is so real, and I think that's something that at least you know what the challenge is, and at least you're open to say that, like, I'm struggling with this. And a lot of people aren't open to saying that. So I just applaud you for even being open with your story and just keeping it real.
Oh, well, thank you. As I say it, I'm like, should I be saying this? But at the end of the day, I think everyone kind of has reserves when they're starting something new. And when people say to you, you know, do what you love, the money will come. Yes, I definitely completely think it's true. My whole story would be hypocritical if I didn't say that I thought that was true. But you also live in a world where people want receipts. They want tangibles. They want to know how it works. And when you're starting something new and you don't know how it works, I don't feel like it's a crime to say that.
I agree with you on that one. So let's say, like, you know, what would be your ultimate goal for goals? Like, you know, where do you want to build this? What do you want this to look like in the next few months, next few years?
In the next few months, I want to have my website off the ground. I want to have I'm booking, you know, people easier now, so that's great. So I'm gonna keep my consistency. I want to stay consistent. After a certain point, I want to do live events. I've actually I had an episode of Goals entitled "Starting the Conversation," where I basically interviewed a grassroots activist who now heads up a chapter of Black Lives Matter with New Jersey. I interviewed a assistant professor of sociology on, you know, community policing because he had concentration in public service, and I interviewed a retired police officer and public relations. I'm sorry, and I interviewed a retired police officer, and you know, we had the hard talk about policing and community policing in America, and in a few months I started working with my alma mater on doing a live event for Goals, the podcast, and, you know, having the same conversation, but expanding it with, you know, a couple politicians and in front of a live audience. And that's something that I really want to get into. I want to get into, you know, hard-hitting stories. I want to stay, you know, interviewing these entrepreneurs, but that's something that I really want to get into. And, you know, at the top of 2017, I would love to be at the point where I'm like, okay, I want to make a goals planner. That's really something that I love going to TJ Maxx and finding like really cute, interesting little planners. And that's something that I kind of want to push. But you already know what I'm going to say. I need the audience first.
Or you need to just know what your audience wants sometimes, because you may think that they want a planner, but they really want I don't even know what the other option be. They may want a book and not a planner,
Sure.
right? They may. So as you grow, like and as you get engaged with your audience, all that stuff shapes. But I think that as you know, you have to have that goal, and you just saying you have the goal is the thing that will definitely help you work towards it and build towards that.
From your mouth to God's ears, Raina.
So what motivates you when you feel like giving up? Because I know a lot of our dream drivers listening in, they may be like you, where they've, you know, they had this idea of what their life was supposed to be like, and it hasn't turned out to be that. But what kind of, you know, words of encouragement would you say to that person?
You got to figure out, for lack of better words, what drives you. I mean, I know that's what you just said, but recently, you know, I've reconnected with a lot of my family members. For a while, I was really unhappy, and I wasn't talking to a lot of my family members, and I realized that I was so unhappy around my 24th birthday, and I reached out to a lot of them, and now I have like such a great relationship now that I know that really what drives me is my family, and that same initial goal that I had of seeing my family win and seeing my family in a better place, and, you know, just monetarily us not having to be, you know, in specific environments. That's what drives me to success. Like, my family just motivates me so much. That's really what it is. So you have to find that spark for you. And fortunately for me, maybe unfortunately for others, I've realized that it's not money. money comes and goes. And if you base your highs and lows off of that, you'll be hitting highs and lows and peaks and valleys for a very long time, because as soon as you get it, you could lose it. So you should find something that drives you that's not monetary and not so fickle.
Mm-hmm. That is so important, and I think all of us, we have to know that what drives you may not drive somebody else, and having that unique drive is, I think, what makes us special. And it's also important to realize that it's okay, like, if what motivates you or what keeps you going is totally different from what keeps somebody else going.
Definitely, definitely.
So, the last thing I want to ask you, Shay, oh my God, it just escaped me. That's so embarrassing. Let me, okay, here. So, is there anything you would change about your journey thus far? Like, if you could go back in time and do something differently, would you?
Yes. If I could go back in time, I would listen to, he's still one of my best friends to this day. I used to call him Ronager, because I would say like he was my manager, like in my head. He told me very early on, he's one of those kind of like tastemakers, get on Tumblr. And I get on Tumblr. I think you would be good if you started a podcast. I didn't start a podcast when you told me. I think you should look into this. I didn't look into that when he told me. Mind you, this had to be 2016. He was telling me to do this stuff in 2010, 2011. Had I listened to him, and I'm so upset that I'm about to say this, I would be so much further. But I swore, and it wasn't even that I swore he didn't know what he was talking about. I was just being lazy. Like, I'm not someone that loves to be in front of the camera, so social media isn't really my thing. As far as podcasting, Apple was just really getting going at the time, and I didn't even have an iPhone, so it wasn't something that I was like totally invested in. But I mean, look at me now. I literally, my mom, bless her heart, she invested in me, and she just bought me a Mac. Knowing I have, like two other computers, she bought me a Mac because she said, this is the best, and I want to invest in you and invest in your dream, and I know you're going to do it. But had I listened to Ron, my best friend, I would have been so much further.
Definitely. But you know what? All that stuff, all the experience that you had is now going to make this dream of yours, this goal of yours, even more successful. So it's sometimes things happen for a reason, and sometimes we don't do things for a reason too. So there may very well be there may be something that we'll never know, right?
Yeah, at this point, right?
So let's get into our lightning round, and this part is where we will. I'll give you a prompt, and I need you to tell me the first word that comes to mind. Okay?
Okay, I'm waiting for this. Okay.
All right. The first word is park.
Stop.
Reverse.
Go back.
Neutral.
Goal.
Drive.
Drive.
Yeah. See, that wasn't so hard, right?
It wasn't.
I love this part because everyone's always so nervous, and it's funny because on one of the episodes I had one of my friends and one of my guests interview me, and he asked me the same questions, and I was like, It was funny because on I think for reverse I said the word chains, and he was like, what? I was like, I don't know. That's the first thing that came to mind. All right, and last but not least, if you want to be a dream driver, you need the keys. So can you tell me 3 things that you think all aspiring dream drivers need in their toolkit before they hit the road?
Oh wow! Or is it gonna be like? Does it have to be tangible things or
Anything. 3 things you got to put in your bag before you start your car.
Okay, 3 things that you got to put in your bag before you start your car. Your sense of direction, your plan. That's definitely something that you should have, because even though a map has 3 or 4 different ways you can get to one destination, if you don't even have those 3 or 4 different ways, you are already starting off behind people. The next thing that I think you would need to have before you pull off is a good support system. I have my insurance, USAA. Some people have AAA, but you need to have, your family, your friends, just someone that you can be able to talk to when things get rough before you go on this journey. You need to have that support system that if something pops off and a tire rolls off your car, you could call them and they'll be ready to, pick you up, metaphorically speaking. And I think the last thing that you need to have is why this came into my mind, but I think you need to have water. And I don't really think like in a literal sense, although that is probably very important too. But there's times, because I live in Atlanta, I'm stuck in a lot of traffic, but there's times when I get so thirsty, and the one thing that, they always say quenches your thirst is water. So when I'm saying that metaphorically, before you go on your drive, you need to have that one thing that's gonna kind of revitalize you. Water always kind of does that for me. It kind of like washes out everything that's already in your mouth, rinses out that bad taste out of your mouth, and it's that one thing that kind of refreshes you for you to say, okay, I can keep my foot on the gas.
I love that. These were all so unique. These are great. Support system, that's a common one. I think a lot of us don't realize how important that is.
Yeah.
And your support system can either be the thing that brings you up or the thing that brings you down. So it's very key that you really analyze who are the people that are that you're giving that license to be your support system. Not everybody should have it.
Definitely not. Yeah, girl. Yes. Not everyone should have it. And entrepreneurs, I mean, you're gonna run into issues where you thought your friends and some of your family members had your back, and you're thinking, wow, you can't even repost something that I tweeted for the good of my business, or you know what I'm saying? Like, that's something that you definitely kind of harbor that in. And once you start to know who your support system is in a good way, make sure you lift them up too. Don't have them be the only people lifting.
Oh wow, I love that. Love that. So last but not least, Chay, do you have any parting words for our dream drivers listening in?
Aside from, make sure you go check out Goals the Podcast. I definitely want to have you just know that you can do it. This is what this is all about, the motivation. And I want, you to know that whether you got a $20,000 degree or $100,000 degree, no degree at all, you can do it. And it doesn't matter what a piece of paper says. It doesn't matter what anyone says. As long as you know and you say that you can do it, you can do it.
Thank you so much, Chay. I really appreciated talking to you today, and I think that everyone listening in has learned so much from your story. So thank you once again.
Thank you for having me. I'm hoping they did, and I hope they don't think I'm like crazy and I bounce around from thing to thing to thing. But if you do think that, just at least I'm bouncing around, right? You got to keep going. You got to keep moving.
Yes. Hashtag dreams and drive.
Yes.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 36 with Chay Rodriguez. I hope that you guys enjoyed hearing her dream driving story and learning her personal keys to success. If you want today's show notes and you want to learn more about Chay, all you have to do is go to dreamsanddrive.com and click on episode 36. Don't forget to follow us on social at Dreams and Drive, or to join our online community, which you can access at dreamsanddrive.com/join. I hope that you guys are inspired to keep driving, keep dreaming, and I will speak to you all in episode 37.